Hey fly tiers, this is Darren from Piscator Flies. I'd like to thank Dave for letting me share one of my patterns on the channel and for posting it up on Wet Fly Swing. If you want to check out my other fly tying, you can have a look at youtube.com/piscatorflies or just follow the link in the description. So the pattern we're going to be tying today is one called the Chaddock. This is a pattern that was created by Karl Haufler from Edmonds, Washington, and he created this pattern to simulate lakes or leeches for lake fishing, but it works well even in waters where there are no leeches present. So the rear half of this is made from red wool, and if you don't have wool, you can use something like a dubbing or chenille. So let's have a look at the materials and get started. Alright, let's get a fresh hook in the vise. I'm using an older mustad hook here today. This one is the Mustad 38941, and I'm using a size 4, but any 4XL, 5XL, 6XL hook should be fine. So you just need a little bit of length so you can basically separate this fly into two sections. So I'm going to be using 140 denier ultra thread, and we're going to start that near the front of the hook. We're just going to lay down a base of thread. And I'm going to take that all the way down just to the hook tip here. Then we're going to come back about to center point, give or take. So I'm going to use red wool. This is something I use for some of my steelhead eggs, actually. If you don't have wool, you can use something like a Senyo laser dub and just dub on a fine noodle, or you can use just like a chenille, small chenille. So we're going to start by just tying that down along the hook shank. I like to keep it right on top there. You want to compress the diameter of that as much as you can. We got that tied down. We'll take it back to the center there. And you can kind of see, if you twist this wool, you can compress the diameter. If you twist it the other way, you'll kind of uncompress it. But we're going to just kind of keep that a little tightly twisted on there. And you just give it like a half twist on every loop. And we'll tie that off right here. You want to make sure you got a good grasp of that. Trim off the excess, put that aside for the next one. So here's where this pattern sort of deviates from the original. The original calls for peacock breast, and what I'm using on here is actually a black schlappen. This is a iridescent. You can kind of see it's got a bit of a sheen, so it's not a white dyed black. This is actually a natural black, and this is actually called peacock schlappen. You can find similar traits in like natural black hen. It's if you don't have access to this feather, should work pretty well. So we just tie that in, just kind of like separate the fibers, pull them back, tie this in by the tip. You don't want it too close to the tip, it gets fairly fragile up there. What I like to do is just pull back that tip just to make sure it really gets locked in, and then you can just pull that away. So now we're just going to pull this feather tight and just run our scissors along that inside edge, and then we're just gonna give that a few wraps. And we're basically palmering this feather backwards just so that all the fibers are going to kind of conceal that body. And if you have a choice of length for your rear collar here, I would use a shorter hackle. You can kind of see how that's starting to shroud that a little bit. And if you have a longer one for the front, kind of make up for a little bit of the length difference there. And so we tied that off. I like to fold the stem back again just to make sure it's locked in place. No. And I'll cut that off. Alright, next I'm going to take a piece of medium oval tinsel in silver. If you don't have oval tinsel, you can just use silver wire, will work great. And I like to tie that in the length of the section here we're tying. And then we're going to take some peacock herls. I've got 5 here today. And we're just going to line those up by the tips, or the bases. We're going to come up to the tip. We're going to cut off a little bit of that, just because you've got, that's your weakest part, is at the tip. And they get stronger towards the base. We'll tie those in along the full length of the shank. And then we're going to give those a little bit of a twist. And then we're going to start wrapping. Just going to wrap those forward. The original, I believe, calls for black chenille, so by all means, if you have black wool or a black chenille, you can go ahead and use that rather than the peacock herl, but I think this gives it a little bit more added iridescence, kind of like what you have in the schlappen there. Alright. Just going to add a half hitch here just so that that doesn't get bumped off and unravel everything. Next we're going to take this oval tinsel and I'm going to reverse wrap it. So that adds a little bit of strength. So we're wrapping the opposite direction that we wrapped the peacock herl. And we'll make sure that's tight. Give it a wrap in behind and in front. Then we'll fold that back and just wrap over it a couple times just to make sure it's really locked in. It's not going to unravel. Alright, now we're going to take another peacock schlappen feather. I'm going to pull some of the fluff off the base here just to keep it out of the way. And again, we're just going to pull from the tip. I'm going to pull those feathers back, fibers, and we're going to tie that in with the shiny side towards us, just along the side of the shank. Take a couple wraps, come back, fold the tip, secure it down, and just add another half hitch there. And again, we're just going to take our scissors and run that along top edge here. Just helps kind of preen the feather so that it's easy to fold. So we're going to grab everything at once and turn it, palmer it around the hook shank. And we'll probably use the full length we have on this feather here. Just kind of put a veil over that body. Now we'll take our thread and just lock that stem in place. And I like to fold that back and just make sure you get a little bit of that locked in before you trim it. And all we need to do now is just add a whip finish. And I always like to add a second one, just a little bit of an insurance policy there. Durable fly. And there you go. That's the Chaddock variation.